Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sigma Rift Clears. We are just about through all of the rifts, so if you haven't caught the ones in the previous episodes, please make sure to go give them a watch, as they are greatly helpful for getting through a lot of this difficult content. Today, we will be focusing on the rifts that are outlined on your screen with the arrows currently. And it's a little bit out of order, but I promise you we'll get to all of the rifts in this table in one video or another. But before we get started, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. If you're not, please take a moment to do so, as that subscription is free and easy, and I bring content to you on a daily basis. Feel free to drop a like on the video if you enjoyed. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into these rifts. The first rift that we'll be having a look at is the level 47 Countdown Rift on the Raft. Now this one is pretty simple once you get the rhythm down, though there are a couple of tricky puzzle sections that you need to keep in mind. Primarily, you need to make sure that you can get through this without having any of your teammates incapacitated, as well as getting through with having a minute and 30 seconds or more on that timer by the time the trial is ended. And there's only 30 seconds to start, but as you defeat enemies as you go through the trial, you will accrue more time to that timer. And the stronger the enemy, the more time gets allocated to the fight. So starting things off, we are at the little sand pit after the Sandman fight, where you typically meet Nick Fury in the main story quest. And a couple of things that you'll want to keep in mind is there are some of these snipers from the AIM crew hanging out in different parts of the match. So as soon as you take him out, you just want to hit that little gate there to progress into the next section. It's full of a mixture of Hydra and AIM cronies, but none of them are as annoying as those snipers tend to be, so you should be able to burn through the characters in here pretty efficiently. Once you get all of these opponents burned down, you'll want to make your way into the next chamber, and this is where things start to get a little bit hairy. It's the exact same laser grid that you're familiar with. So that first one, you'll want to ideally use a character with a double jump to get through. The second one, you can roll through as you make your way across. For this third puzzle, you'll need to time your jumps a little bit with the pulsing center lasers there. And then for this fourth and final rift, or not rift, but laser grid, you'll just need to drag the box in front. You need to keep in mind that there is that AIM soldier in the back that is targeting you the whole time, so you may need to roll around some of his attacks. Here, we need to make our way through this section of the laser grid, and you just need to get the timing down so you can jump through that area. Characters with double jumps tend to have a little bit of an easier time with that. And here, you just need to time your jump along with these lasers that cycle in and out. It might be a little easier if you have a character that can fly to get through that last one. I don't have one on my team, so it took a little bit of trial and error. From here, you need to make sure that you can get through the opponents. There's going to be 20 of them in this room that you can burn through. And again, as you focus on some of the larger, more difficult opponents, you will accrue more and more time to the timer. After hitting about 10, you're going to get a bunch more that pop up from these holding cells. And as you continue to lay into them, you will be able to accrue more time for the challenge in and of itself, as well as just an overall efficiency in getting through. Now, I lose track a little bit of this last opponent. He's in the back corner, so I lost some precious seconds there, but we'll be able to make up for that as we continue forward. As soon as you have the 20 enemies taken care of here, you're going to have the timer pause as this little play section passes, and then you'll be able to transition into the puzzle section. Now, the easiest thing to do here is to try and separate your teammates with leaving at least one character in this back holding cell, because it's just that terminal you have to interface with. So if you can get one of your characters back behind to activate that terminal, you can then transition over to any other member of your team to finish the fight with the little enemy here to gain some extra time onto your timer, and as soon as you transition onto the stairs over here, you'll have the team member you left behind teleport to you, which is always nice. We've got a couple more enemies in this little section before the next open area, so do take a moment or two to take them on, as that will accrue more time to your timer there as well. And we are just about through into one of the last sections or areas here, which we'll need to focus down a couple more of these mightier enemies, primarily these green aim soldiers, which I've mentioned in previous videos. They're some of my least favorite opponents to fight, just with the way that their area of effect attacks tend to work. You'll need to defeat some more of these enemies as they are blocking the entrance to the door that you need to make your way through. But as soon as you clear them out, you should be in a pretty good position. Now, I popped my extreme attack with Miles there mainly to preserve his life as he was getting really low on his health. Ideally, I would have liked to have saved it for this last boss confrontation, which is just through this set of double doors. And coming into this fight, we have over a minute left on our timer. Now, in order to finish out this trial, you do need to defeat MODOK, and the main thing that I am focusing on doing is burning out his stagger bar using Wolverine's adamantium uppercut, which makes things a little bit difficult with the general type of attacks that he has. But as soon as you get that stagger bar down, the best thing that you can do is whip through the rest of your extreme attacks, and that's going to be more than enough to get you through, and you gain a significant chunk of time to grant you the 3-star clear upon defeating MODOK. The second rift of today's video is a level 48 rift, the ultimate rift, labeled Friends and Foes. Here, you'll need to face off against Electra and her powerful allies. You do have some other boss characters that show up into this fight once you get into, or deeper into the fight, and you need to defeat all of the boss characters in order to progress. Mainly, you just need to focus on the bosses, though there are other grunts that pop in. You should be able to do that in 3 minutes and 45 seconds or less, as well as getting through this with 1 or fewer teammate incapacitations. Alright, so this is the boss fight that you're pretty familiar with from the main story. You need to defeat these hand grunts that are sustaining Electra before she will take any meaningful damage or really be able to do anything permanent to her. So Wolverine is really efficient at burning down a lot of these opponents as he can adamantium uppercut into them. And as we continue through the fight, you notice that the first boss character that shows up is Spider-Gwen, and she can be a little bit annoying because some of her web-slinging attacks are very annoying, as they will stagger you out of even your basic animations. And she does have her homing attack where she pops into the ground a little bit throughout the fight. Now, the second character that shows up is Miss Marvel, and she has very big area of effect hitboxes that she has, which are just kind of annoying to work around. But at this point, we just about have the last member of the hand that's sustaining Electra burned out, and that will be basically what we need in order to trigger phase 2 of this fight. So with Electra's hand grunts down, we should be able to focus on the main bosses that have shown up, but they're not done in their appearance. We now have Miles Morales, who's showed up into the fray, and he makes things a little difficult with my particular team setup because I also use Miles on my team, so it's difficult to distinguish between the Electro webs and different electrical type attacks that are being thrown around the arena here. Miles is looking very, very low, so at this point I do pop into a lot of my extreme attacks to regain some health all across the board with the many different team members that I have. We stagger out a good chunk of the opponents here, and at this point I'm really just looking to get them down as the last member of these bosses that appear into this fight. Red Skull makes an appearance. Now Red Skull, he's more of an area of effect and nuisance as he throws out a lot of these red clouds, which are not a lot of fun to deal with, as well as popping off with some basic projectile attacks. We did manage to get Miles down, so that's one of the many opponents that we have to take out. And I'm focusing on Electra because she's a little more souped up than the other boss characters in this fight are really being. So at this point, we're just dancing around a lot of the attacks that she does have, and with a few more of these adamantium uppercuts, we should have Electra finished out. We're just dancing around some of her more directional attacks that she's throwing out here. But with a couple of just standard attacks there from Wolverine, we do have Electra burned down, and we've just got to focus on the remainder of the boss characters here. Some of Gambit's deadly deal gets Spider-Gwen out of the picture, and at this point we're going to focus on Red Skull over here in the corner and the deadly deal is going to get a lot of really meaningful damage in on Red Skull as we continue through the remainder of this fight. We've just about got him down. I've got Morbius switched onto the team dynamic in replacement of Thanos, mainly because I'm wanting to get a little bit quicker attacks in on these opponents as they show up, and the heavier hitting attacks are made a lot more efficient with Morbius's attack, the Paralyzing Gaze, as it lowers the defense of basically anyone that you use it on. Taking down Red Skull there gets us that clear with all the criteria met, so that is excellent work. The third rift of today's video is a level 49 boost style rift where we need to defeat Corvus and Proxima. Both sides of the fight are dealing increased damage, so you've just got to be extra cautious from taking some of the heavier hitting attacks from these opponents. Additionally, you need to get through here with 2 or less teammates incapacitated over the course of the fight, though ideally you want to keep them all on their feet as much as you can where possible, as well as getting through the fight in 4 minutes or less. So this is basically a carbon copy of the fights that you would see from the main story quest, where we have Corvus first in the area of Nowhere, which is just before the end fight against Thanos and Thane. And it's pretty similar to what you would otherwise see from him, as it is Corvus with his Reality Stone enhancements, and you do want to kind of stay out of the range of these characters as much as you can. Though you do benefit pretty greatly from the increased attack damage that you're doing, so I'm laying in with some of the heavier hitting attacks that I have at my disposal. And one of those is certainly the attack with Wolverine in his Adamantium Uppercut. There's a couple of elemental attacks that pop in with some of Corvus's heavier hitting attacks, but we have just about everything that we need here. And because Wolverine's EP has run out, I've switched over into Human Torch a little bit to get his Flame Wheel and then his Flaming Slam there into the different attacks. We've just about got Corvus finished, but he does retreat a little bit here into the reality clones that come in from the corners. But at this point, I'm really just looking to get Corvus down and out. So I switch over to Mr. Fantastic to get some of his arm spinning attack to burn through a lot of his stagger bar. And with another use of that attack, we not only get his stagger bar depleted, but we also get through this phase of his attack. Now the timer does not pause here, so you really don't want to waste a lot of time, but you do need to transition from this area to the next in order to trigger the fight against Proxima. So we'll go ahead and make our way onto this elevator and make our way across. As soon as that door opens, you just want to rush forward into the next phase of the fight. And Proxima is one of the harder hitting members of the Black Order, just as a general rule. And this portion of the fight has the added difficulty of a lot of Outriders being used for the combat. So she's hitting very hard, harder than she even normally does. And I just can't seem to roll around the different attacks that she's doing with Wolverine even. And that is troubling because Wolverine is getting very low down on his health. And those electric attacks that she throws out are not especially helpful. So at this point, we're just looking to get her to the second half and the second stage of her fight. And hopefully we are able to do that sooner rather than later, because I really didn't want to have to pop my extreme attacks before getting her into the second stage, but I had to for sake of healing the members of my team. Fortunately, Morbius really helps out with that Paralyzing Gaze, as it increases the overall damage output that we can throw out. And I'm looking to attack a few more of these Outriders with Wolverine to build up some more of his EP bar, as the Adamantium Uppercut is just a very efficient tool when used against Proxima Midnight and other boss-style characters. So we are just about to the 40 or 30% mark with Proxima. The team's looking pretty good, and we do have the Outriders that have spawned in completely depleted out. And that should be all we really see for the remainder of the fight in terms of alternate enemies in the area here. Now, as soon as we get this last stagger finished from Proxima, we're just going to lay into her with a couple of standard attacks, and that is going to be enough to get through this rift with all 3 stars included. Rift number 4 of today's video is the level 50 synergy trial, where the objective is to defeat Maximus. This is a very frustrating trial for a couple of different reasons. Primarily that last star, the finishing in 1 minute and 30 seconds or less. The quirk of this fight is that all of your synergy attacks, and synergy attacks exclusively, deal increased damage, and that's really going to be your bread and butter and game changer for this style of the fight. I had to go through this rift half a dozen times before I was finally able to get the clear in 1 minute and 30 seconds or less, and there are a couple of mechanics that make it a little more difficult. The other criteria of defeating 30 enemies isn't as bad, as Maximus throws in a lot of his autonomous drones, and those do count as enemies. They've got a relatively low health pool, especially for the souped up synergy attacks from members of your team. But I would highly recommend with this rift especially that you focus on those 2 additional stars separately. So getting right into the fight here, Maximus starts on the other end of the room from where you're at, which makes things a little bit less than ideal. But as you can see there, with the synergy attack that I'm prioritizing using the adamantium uppercut from Wolverine, we are burning through not only his stagger bar, but also his main health pool. From here, you do want to cycle around some of these drones that tend to get in the way, and as you continue to lay into Maximus, you'll be able to deal devastating amounts of damage to his stagger and overall health. Now, the first 2 stages of this fight are really pretty simple to get through, and as soon as you have him into that 3rd stage, this is where the RNG element tends to kick in a little bit and can make this fight devastating. Once he's in this 3rd stage, he can go into one of a couple of different phases. Hopefully, he goes into a phase like this where he shoots up some projectile attacks and allows you to approach him. Because the other phase that he can go into is he puts himself in a little protective bubble and summons some autonomous drones. And you're going to see that right here. Luckily, I was able to take him out because of the low stagger bar that he had accessed before he got into that phase, and that's the key. If he goes into that phase, your run's basically over and you're going to have to try again. The final rift of today's video is the level 52 boss wave rift, where we not only needed to defeat Dr. Octopus, which is only the 1st stage of his fight. He doesn't go over to the elevator stage, which is really nice, because the elevator stage can be a little bit annoying, if we're being completely honest. But you also will need to defeat Magneto and MODOK, as they are the last 2 characters that appear in this boss wave style. You need to get through this fight with 1 or fewer teammate incapacitations, which should be pretty simple, especially if you focus on the main bosses that show up in the fight, and that will be further complemented by getting the clear in 5 minutes and 30 seconds or less. Honestly, that's a pretty generous time constraint, which you should be able to get through pretty simply. So right off the bat, Dr. Octopus shows up as he is the primary character that we are needing to focus on and take down. And I'm really burning into as many of these synergy styles attacks as I can. And right off the bat, we're maybe 15-20 seconds in and we've already got Dr. Octopus down to half capacity. Now, there are other opponents that show up in the course of this fight that can make things a little bit annoying, but if you continue to focus on the main boss as he's showing up, you should be able to get through that with relative ease. Now, rolling behind Dr. Octopus is one of the better moves that you can make because it allows you to maximize the damage while minimizing the risk of damage taken from his attacks. And Dr. Octopus has some very interesting mechanics. That charge attack leaves him with a hitbox on all sides of that attack, so you can't approach him until the little wind box effect is finished out. But we've got him down to the last little sliver of health here. So with Wolverine, we do one final synergy attack with that adamantium uppercut, which gets us into phase 2 of this fight. As mentioned before, phase 2 is Magneto, and Magneto can be a little bit of a nuisance with his large area of effect type attacks and bursting style attack damage as well. But honestly, what I found was best is at this point, if you've played your game correctly, you should have all of your extreme attacks online. And so we go ahead and get Magneto down into his staggered state and then unleash all of our extreme attacks onto him with the members of our team. Doesn't quite get him down, but he's down to the 20 or 15 or 20% mark in his health capacity. So we just need to lay into him with a couple more attacks, and I'm going back to my favorite tried and true Wolverine and the Adamantium Uppercut, Rinse and Repeat. Mainly because it does really good amounts of damage to both the stagger bar and the overall health pool. With one final Adamantium Uppercut there, we have Magneto completely taken out, and that will prompt the final boss to spawn in, and that is MODOK. Now, MODOK, he kind of gets stuck over here in the corner. And I don't know that that's an intended portion of this fight mechanic, but he doesn't really move. And that can be a little bit annoying because he leaves himself not incredibly vulnerable with the majority of the different attacks that he does. So at this point, we're really just looking to get his stagger bar down as much as we possibly can. And from here, he transitions from one corner to another. These box-style arenas are not ideal for fighting MODOK specifically, as he doesn't do... The boss fight is just complicated if he gets stuck in a corner. From here, we just need to roll away from the area of effect draining attack that he has so he doesn't heal up too much. But at this point, we switch over to Morbius to get some of that paralyzing gaze up. He rolls over to yet another corner, and this is where things tend to get a little bit more frustrating, where he's using these laser attacks. And I unfortunately roll into that laser attack there, but we have one other teammate incapacitation that we can kind of afford to lose in that capacity. So while MODOK is using his area of effect attack, which is not influencing the area where MODOK is, I run over and get him revived back up, mainly because I highly value the extreme attacks in this particular fight. So we're just looking to get MODOK down to the last little bit of his stagger, and as soon as we have that, we'll be good to go ahead and deploy the different extreme attacks for the different members of our team. Now, with one final flurry of blows here in an Adamantium Uppercut, we have MODOK down to that last little bit. The problem with this is I need to walk each of my characters individually over to that corner where he's stuck before unleashing the different extreme attacks. But one by one, we do get that damage in, and with that final extreme attack from Gambit, we have this rift cleared out with all 3 stars. So that is going to do it for today's video, and I hope you enjoyed. We've got 2 more episodes in this Rift style, and we'll probably need to take a little bit of a break before taking on the Omega style Rifts that were made available with the most recent update to the game. That being said, we will see you back next week for another episode of these Lambda Rift clears. My mistake. Lambda Rifts. And we will lay into a couple more of these challenges as the weeks progress. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you're not. Again, videos every single day, and that subscription is free and easy. And leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Don't forget to comment and let me know what rifts you're struggling with so I can hope to highlight them in a future video. Thanks again for watching, and you have a fantastic rest of your day.